Nevada prison guard exposes 7 sinister rules haunted by unexplained terrors no one dares to break. Jason Collins still relives the nightmares. The sharp clang of steel doors shuttering shut, the shouts and cries echoing down the halls, the glint of madness in the eyes of men stripped of their humanity, it haunted him like a dark ghost refusing to fade. Those 7 rules he lived by, the unspoken truths of survival in that godforsaken prison trapped him like an iron cell. Rules birthed from fear, meant to keep the guards alive, they whispered ominously in his mind. Everyone knew the unbreakable first: never show fear. But how do you manage that when you're walking through the suffocating silence of your new suburban home, thoughts driven mad by memories of despair? The clamor and laughter of children felt alien now, a stark contrast celebrating life while he wrestled with shadows. Outside, the world spewed sunshine and false security, but in Jason's heart, dread crept in, whispering that blood doesn't wash off, not really. When Lily invited him to Silver Springs, he thought it would be a fresh start, a place where he could slip out of the shadows. But the past lingers, refusing to let him breathe easy. It was on that fateful night, when Tommy ran home, all wide-eyed and breathless. "Uncle Jason, I heard talking in the old house next door." The boy's innocence, coupled with the horror of Jason's past, sent chills racing down his spine. The decrepit house, oozing neglect, wore vines like hideous scars. With the kind of recoil he thought he had buried deep, Jason stepped into that still, suffocating evening. Night smothered the neighborhood. The air thickened with tension as he drew closer. Could it be mere childish imagination? Or something far more sinister? His heart raced, and a lump formed in his throat. The whispers grew louder, they were no longer just echoes of a child's voice, they felt like a beckoning. And there it stood, the house, both a monument and a warning of doom. He hesitated, struck by the memories of the prison's bleak walls, the violence that had scratched beneath skin and bone. He brushed the cold sweat from his brow and followed the instincts honed by years behind bars. He could feel it, every instinct screamed at him to turn back. Ignoring them, he crossed the threshold and knocked. The door crumbled to reveal a darkness more oppressive than any cell block he had known. Then came the whispers, rising like the damned, drawing him further into the maw of despair. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Inside, remnants of lives once lived suffocated him, the decay mingling densely in the air. Memories scratched at him, clawing wildly. Old photographs of inmates, reminders of the prison's dark legacy, cluttered the corners alongside a diary, its pages filled with frenzied scribbles about obsessions too horrific to fathom. Each line pulsated with despair while shadows began to coalesce, twisting into shapes that whispered his name. What if those 7 rules didn't apply here? What if he strayed into something far darker? Jason's pulse quickened. Time was slipping, and Tommy could be trapped in their whispers. The house breathed around him, its own heart beating in tune with his horror, and just past its threshold, a terrible force pulled him closer. Closer to the edge of dread, gripping, heavy, ready to consume everything he loved. Now, Jason faced a chilling question: could he confront this unseen enemy? Or would past fears seal the fate of those he vowed to protect? The night closed in, the shadows stretching. Frenzy teasing the edges of his sanity, as Jason stepped deeper into the unknown, a decision between salvation and surrender looming dangerously before him. The whispers twisted around Jason, pressing against him like a weight too heavy to bear. He forced himself forward, stepping deeper into the darkness, where the air thickened and each breath felt like a struggle. His instincts screamed at him to retreat, but the thought of Tommy lingered, innocent, vulnerable. Jason recalled how those shadows danced in the corners of the prison's common area, those moments where lives hung in the balance, and right now, it felt like Tommy's fate was tied to his choices. "Tommy?" he called, voice trembling. The word echoed, swallowed by the dark, dissipating into the oppressive silence. Panic pricked at his skin. He turned his attention to the fading light filtering through shattered windows, casting a languid glow over the shattered remnants of forgotten life. Broken chairs, fragments of glass, and peeling wallpaper whispered remnants of past anguish. Suddenly, the whispers sharpened voices merging into a cacophony that sent chills crawling up his back. They spoke in a language he couldn't understand. He staggered back, almost tripping over debris. He clutched the doorframe for support, heart thudding like a riot in his chest. It felt eerily alive, a sentient entity yearning to engulf him. The diary, he remembered it vividly, the scribbles that had knotted his stomach. He tore free from his thoughts, furious with himself for allowing doubt to seep in. He needed to find it, there might be clues hiding amidst the madness. The diary held a twisted history, and maybe, just maybe, it could reveal the horror that awaited him. Pushing through the oppressive darkness, he stumbled down a hallway swathed in shadows. The whispers intensified, wrapping around him like a noose. Helplessly, he murmured, "What are you? What do you want from me?" But the walls didn't answer, they only breathed heavily, as if they too were part of this sinister game. As he moved deeper, the floor groaned beneath him like tortured souls. The air shrieked, tearing at his lungs. He reached a doorway at the end, its wood buckled and rotting. Beyond it lay a room bathed in half-light, the grayish hue flickering as if the darkness had its own pulse. There, perched on a dust-covered table, sat the diary, its pages fluttering as if the book itself were alive. Jason stepped inside. A cold chill shot through him. Each shadow seemed to stretch out, eager to reach him, as if seeking solace or vengeance. He snatched the diary, hands trembling. The moment his fingers brushed the cover, a shriek echoed throughout the house, an inhuman shriek, longing and alive, shaking him to his core. He tore it open, skimming past the frantic scrawl until one phrase stopped him dead: "They come for the children. They feed on fear." The words burned in his mind like a brand. This was no ordinary diary, it was a warning, but a warning for whom? For he, the prison guard, the watcher of darkness, had now stepped into something much more profound, more haunting. Jason's blood ran ice cold as he perceived movement beyond the walls, a creeping slither of darkness. Shadows formed into indistinct figures, whispering sweet nothings into the stale air. They pressed against the walls, as though the house itself had become a living thing, alive, hungry, and aware of him. His breath came in shallow gasps. Where was Tommy? This new terror pressed ever harder against his chest, leaving him dizzy. Time slipped through his fingers like grains of sand. Panic clawed at him, if he didn't act now. But just as he resolved to read further, the shadows writhed into a horrific surge, and a presence charged at him, dark and unsettling. It radiated the weight of years, of souls trapped, yearning for release. Jason felt the heat of regret as he faltered, recognizing the voice, a whisper he never wanted to hear again. It was like a ghost from his past, and with it came the stunning realization that breaking the rules might seal their fate, not his alone but everyone he held dear. He turned to flee, but at that instant, the shadows lunged, and Jason realized he had stepped into a nightmare deeper than the prison. Now, a question echoed ominously: what would be left of him when the night finally unfurled its truth? Jason stumbled backward, heart racing, adrenaline flooding his veins. The shadows seemed to dance and cackle, a tapestry of whispers merging into a solid wall of dread. Time twisted, snapping taut as he pressed against the rotting doorframe, desperately searching for an escape. But the darkness closed in, each heartbeat resonating like a drum, drawing the malevolent presence closer. He could almost feel the cold breath of the shadows on the back of his neck, urging him to submit to fear. Was this what they meant by feeding? The terror was palpable, thickening the air until every breath felt like a betrayal. He couldn't afford to freeze. The diary weighed heavy in his hands, and the warning pulsed in his mind. Tommy was out there, somewhere in this swirling pit of despair. What did it mean for him? A flicker of movement caught his eye. Jason peered into the depths of the corridor, half expecting to see a child, yet all he saw were the jagged edges of darkness that coiled like serpents. "Tommy!" The shout tore from his throat, raw and desperate. Silence enveloped him once more, thick, suffocating. Every muscle in his body coiled, ready to spring, but fear held him captive as shadows writhed and twisted, forming grotesque shapes that sank deep into his psyche. Instead of retreating, a primal instinct took hold. He would face whatever haunted these halls. He gripped the diary tighter and scanned the room with frantic eyes. Beneath the dust, beneath the old wood and forgotten memories, there had to be something, anything that banished the whispers. The pages turned with a rustle, revealing more chaotic scrawls, demonic sketches that made his skin prickle. "They take them at twilight," one note read, an urgent warning marred by stains of age. Instinctively, he glanced at the decrepit window just in time to see the last remnants of daylight fleeing. Twilight pressed upon him like an incantation, an invitation to the madness. A sudden rush of air made him turn. The front door behind him creaked open slowly, the hinges protesting in a mournful wail. Fear surged, pushing him forward. He was trapped. The darkness was a net, but he would not allow it to snare him like prey. A choice was forced upon him: run toward the door or stay and face those shadowy wraiths. With his heart pounding like thunder, Jason darted toward that portal of light. He burst through, stumbling onto the porch and gasping as the cool night air slapped his face. He turned back just in time to see the shadows swirl and gather, forming a vortex of despair where the house once stood. Whispers clawed at his ears, promising to take him too. But then, in a sudden quiet, he heard a faint whimper, barely audible yet unmistakably human. It was Tommy. The noise was coming from deeper in the yard. "Tommy!" His voice trembled, drawn back by the sound of hope amidst the haunting darkness. He sprinted forward, calling again, ignoring the spiraling shadows that beckoned him to abandon all hope. Each step was a battle against the pulses of terror radiating from the cursed place behind him. The urge to turn back was intoxicating. The whispers offered solace, a chance to escape this dread. Just a moment. Then he could walk away, forget the child deep in the night. But the whimper echoed again, a desperate plea. Time was slipping fast. What awaited him in the darkness? He pushed through the tangled brush, breath quickening, mind racing with questions. Why was Tommy still here? What had happened to tie him to this curse? As Jason tore through the last obstacles, he stumbled to a clearing bathed in moonlight. "Tommy!" he gasped. The clearing was empty. Just silence. And in that silence, the chuckles returned, the tight noose around his chest drawing closer. Something was behind him now, something with no face, no form, but he felt its gaze, chilling and predatory. Suddenly, he heard another sound, a soft, broken laughter mingled with the night. It wasn't Tommy's voice, but it was close. Was it a trap? Was it luring him deeper into the abyss? And as the shadows danced and circled around him, he felt time slipping away. In that moment, seeds of dread took root in Jason's stomach. The shadow lunged from behind, but before it could reach him, a voice, no, a scream pierced the silence. And it was coming from the house. Jason. The realization burned in him. What had he unleashed? He turned back, racing towards the house as questions crowded his mind, pressing against him like the darkness. What if he wasn't the hunter after all? What if he was the prey? And why did the shadows seem to whisper only one thing? We are waiting. The air grew heavy as Jason stumbled his way back toward the house, the whispers intensifying with each frantic step. Every shadow seemed to reach out, trying to grasp him, to pull him into their eternal darkness. He could no longer tell where the voice, that desperate cry for help, originated inside him or from the depths of the house. "Tommy!" he yelled again, but the sound felt swallowed by the encroaching darkness. Was it even the house anymore? It transformed with every heartbeat, walls unbreathing, almost alive. He approached the porch, and the creaking floorboards sounded like a warning. The front door stood ajar, gaping like a maw. Moonlight trickled in, illuminating dust motes, tiny silent witnesses to the terror unfolding that he stepped inside, dread crawling up his spine. The air was thick and musty, carrying remnants of decay and something more sinister, a metallic scent that turned his stomach. "I'm coming, Tommy." Each word felt heavy, weighed down by the oppressive silence of the house, wrapping around him like a shroud. The fear bubbled inside him, gnawing at his sanity, and every instinct screamed at him to flee. But in the cacophony of his racing thoughts, he heard it again, the whimper, softer this time, a fragile thread of sound leading him deeper into the abyss. He moved cautiously, the diary clutched tightly as if it were a talisman against the horrors that lurked. He turned a corner, glimpsing flickers of movement against the walls, the silhouettes of forgotten memories dancing in the half-light. "Please, let it be you." The plea fell from his lips like ash. Suddenly, from the corner of his eye, Jason saw it. A shadow, long, thin, undulating, slipping between the cracks of reality. A chill raced down his spine. He stumbled backward, heart pounding so loud he wondered if it echoed in the dark beyond. This wasn't just madness, something here was alive, feeding on his fear. "Get a grip," he muttered to himself, forcing his legs to move again. Adrenaline propelled him forward. He had to find Tommy, he had to find the child. In a frenzy of desperation, he pushed open the door to the basement, a feeling of dread washing over him as the darkness yawned before him. "Tommy!" he called out, voice echoing back like taunts. He switched on the fading lights, weak bulbs flickering to life, revealing the damp, crumbling steps leading downward. Each inch which Jason descended echoed with a hollow grief, as if the air itself mourned lost souls buried beneath centuries of sorrow. At the bottom, low light barely illuminated the corners, but he saw something, a figure huddled against the far wall. Hope surged. "Tommy!" He rushed forward, but the child wasn't alone. No, not alone at all. Jason froze, breath caught in his throat. Shadowy forms slithered around Tommy, coiling and twisting, weaving through the air like tendrils of smoke. Tommy curled into himself, eyes wide, reflecting the terror etched into his very soul. It hit him then. The shadows didn't just haunt the house, they were woven into the fabric of it. They were alive, thriving on fear, and now they had found their prey. "Stop!" Jason shouted, the desperation igniting in his chest. He stepped closer, the whispers rising to a crescendo, a maddening symphony that implored him to relinquish hope. Get away from him. But the shadows swelled, their forms swirling closer. He could feel their presence, the icy grip of despair seeping into his skin. Jason turned to the diary, flipping through the pages with trembling hands, searching for something, anything that could save them. And then he found it, half buried beneath the frenzied scribbles, a name. A name that held power. Zara. He whispered, feeling the world tilt on its axis. What if invoking her name could break their hold? But in that heartbeat of uncertainty, the shadows lunged toward him, and he faced the reality crashing in on him. Were there limits to the unearthly rules he had stumbled into? Or had he just stirred something worse? A scream erupted from behind him, and it felt like the darkness pressed harder, the thickening veil, closing in, leaving him gasping for air. "Jason!" The echo of Tommy's voice mixed with shadows, blending into a horrid chorus. He didn't know if he could fight. But in that harrowing moment, a new realization took root: what they sought might not be just Tommy but him as well. And just as quickly as he felt their cold breath on his neck, a chilling gust swept through the room, carrying with it an unsettling command. Join us. Would he succumb to the shadow? Or would the bond of a desperate protector push him beyond the brink? The pulse of terror thrummed like a drum as Jason stood on the precipice. Shadows loomed, whispers beckoned, and the darkness waited, hungry for an answer. Jason felt the shadows press in closer, thick and suffocating. They were more than a mere trick of the light, they pulsed with a malevolent life of their own, crawling along the walls, whispering his name like a broken record. The cold seeped into his bones as fear clawed its way deeper into his psyche. Zara. He gasped, the name a fragile lifeline in the choking darkness. He hoped someone would answer. He clutched the diary tighter, the pages trembling under his grip, searching for guidance. In the flickering light, words blurred, flicking between panic and clarity. The figure of Tommy trembled at the edge of the shadows, unseeing, lost, trapped. Jason's heart twisted as he took a cautious step forward. "I'm here, buddy. We'll get out of this. I promise." But hope felt like sand slipping through his fingers. The whispers pulsed louder, intertwining with Tommy's cries, creating a cacophony of horror. Jason, a gurgling rush, a suffocating symphony of despair reaching out like tendrils, wrapping around his throat. Suddenly, a shape emerged from the thickened shadows, tall, thin, and shrouded in darkness. Long fingers stretched toward Jason, beckoning. "Join us," it crooned, voice echoing with a sinister familiarity. Panic surged as fury deep within him ignited. "No!" he bellowed, desperation spurring him on. He lunged forward, aiming to shield Tommy from the creeping darkness. The shadows recoiled but returned fiercely, like a slingshot snapping back. Jason felt sharp claws graze his arm, and a scream tore through his throat as pain flared. The shadows wrapped around him, twisting and coiling, as if trying to drag him into their depths. In that moment, everything shifted. The diary slipped from Jason's hand, falling to the floor with a thud that reverberated through his very core. "Tommy!" His shout echoed, breaking the spell of torment for just an instant. Tommy blinked, and something sparked in his eyes, a flicker of recognition. "Help me, Jason!" he cried out, voice shaking. Jason forced himself to reach beyond the gnawing terror, beyond the shadows breathing down his neck. He picked up the diary, flipping it open again, frantically scanning for the next clue. There has to be something. As the pages turned, a sudden gust of wind howled through the basement, extinguishing the light bulbs one by one until utter blackness swallowed him whole. Jason's breath quickened. He felt more than saw, the shadows curling around him, closing in with a revenge-fueled hunger. Time was running out, and the air thickened. By instinct, Jason called out the name again. "Zara!" It felt like a lightning bolt. The air pulsed with energy, and for a brief moment, the shadows hesitated. They writhed as if they recognized the name, a flicker of fear crossing their dark faces. "Jason!" Tommy screamed again, the urgency piercing through the chaos. With eyes wide, Jason understood the gravity of the situation. This darkness, these shadows? They weren't just trapped souls, they were sentinels of a deeper horror. What if the name belonged to something worse? Sweat dripped down his brow as the revelation sizzled in his mind. "Zara, what did you do?" But he couldn't afford to dwell on that now. "Tommy! Hold on!" Jason surged forward, fueled by the primal instinct to protect. But as he reached for his brother, the shadows lunged, shifting around him, blurring his vision, stuffing his mouth with darkness. Before he could react, icy tendrils gripped him around the waist, dragging him away from Tommy. Panic rooted Jason to the spot. He reached out, fingertips grazing the boy's trembling hand. Time slowed to a crawl. The shadows began to chant, a maddening chorus that filled his head, drowning out reason. Join us, the horror of the abyss stared back at him, a promise it could keep. Jason was on the brink of losing everything. Would he sacrifice himself to save Tommy? In a desperate act, he screamed the name again. "Zara!" Silence enveloped them, an overwhelming sense of anticipation thrumming in the air. Jason felt the shadows falter, but would it be enough? What now? He thought, heart hammering against his chest as they waited for the consequences of his plea to unfold. The stillness felt unnatural, a pause heavy with dread. Jason held his breath, waiting, hoping the shadows would yield. But they only stirred, restless and impatient, as if they were alive, feeding off his fear. Join us. The chant seeped deeper into his mind, wrapping around his thoughts like a vice. It grew louder, reverberating against the walls until it felt like the whole space was thrumming with their collective voice. Jason squeezed his eyes shut, fighting against the growing panic. "Tommy, I'm not leaving you," he shouted, desperation lacing his voice. He glanced back at his brother, now ghostly pale in the faint light of the flickering bulbs. Tommy's eyes darted around, terror-stricken. But he wasn't helpless. Jason could see that flicker of determination returning. Suddenly, another gust of wind ripped through the basement, a violent torrent that sent debris flying and slammed him against the wall. Slivers of light found their way through the cracks, illuminating the room in a ghastly glow. It made the shadows look even more grotesque, their shapes twisting into nightmarish forms. Then, the chant shifted, morphing into something syllabic, rhythmic, almost like a nursery rhyme. "Zara, Zara, here are, please stop it. Just stop," Jason cried, spotting the diary lying just a few feet away. He reached for it through the chaos, scrambling across the floor, the icy fingers of the shadows snapping at his heels. He clutched the diary, flipping to the last written page where he had seen the name before. "What did you do, Zara?" he whispered, sweat stinging his eyes. It was a question wrapped in fear and desperation. There had to be something, some hidden truth, some way to banish the darkness. A sudden scream rent the air, and Jason whipped around. Tommy was engulfed in shadow, his face contorted in anguish, eyes rolling back. The tendrils writhed around him, pulling him into the suffocating darkness. "No! No, no, no!" Jason sprang to his feet, the weight of the diary almost dragging him down. With a surge of adrenaline, he charged forward, heart pounding against his ribs. Each anguished cry from Tommy fueled his resolve. Jason dove, lungs screaming for air as he grabbed Tommy just as the shadows were about to pull him under completely. "Jason!" Tommy whimpered, panicking, eyes wide and glistening with fear. "I got you. Hold on to me," Jason shouted, clenching his brother's wrist tightly. He felt the shadows grasp at his legs, crawling up his body, slick with a cold, suffocating moisture that he needed to fight back. In a moment of sheer instinct, Jason flipped the diary open, desperately scanning the pages again. He had seen something, a ritual, a possibility for escape. His eyes darted around in a frenzy as he recited words that felt foreign but clung to him nonetheless. "Release us from this torment. Light in the dark." The words spilled from his lips, thick with the urgency of his plea. The shadows wavered, their grip loosening momentarily. The melody of their chant faltered as light flickered from the diary, a golden hue flooding the immediate area. "Keep going," Tommy implored, fear reverting to courage, and with that Jason felt a new strength surge through him. He raised the diary high, pouring everything he had into that single request. "Zara, you have to listen. Help us." In response, the shadows recoiled, as though battling against an unseen force. Jason's heart thundered, unsure if they were truly winning or just delaying the inevitable. Suddenly, an agonizing scream erupted, this time from the depths of the shadows. "Zara, no! You cannot leave!" The air crackled with tension, and Jason's gut twisted. If Zara was the key, what would her true nature reveal? "Tommy, we..." But before he could finish, the ground shook violently, a shockwave of ominous energy reverberating from the dark heart of the basement. "Jason! Help!" The cry echoed, but something inside him snapped. As the letter flew from the pages, a figure flickered in the chaos, something that felt almost familiar yet so immeasurably wrong. "Do you really want to know?" It hissed, voice curling around them like smoke. And against the backdrop of chaos, everything came to a chilling halt, and Jason was left hanging with the weight of a choice, to muster the courage to uncover the horrors of Zara or succumb to the shadows longing to claim them both. He stared into the abyss, heart pounding. Would stepping closer cost them their lives, or offer a chance at salvation? What price was Jason willing to pay? The shadows pulsed, undulating like a living entity, and the air crackled with malevolence. Jason's breath quickened, fear coiling tighter around his throat, choking any coherent thoughts. "No," he murmured, almost to himself, as the entity loomed larger, pulling Tommy and him deeper into its twisted embrace. "Tommy, we have to get out." Jason's voice cracked, the urgency tearing through the calm of the song-like chant. Desperation clawed at him, and he squeezed the diary, searching for any scrap of clarity, any passage that might save them both. But with each heartbeat, the darkness grew bolder. He could feel it, a pressing weight, suffocating and cold, slipping through the cracks in the world. "Help us!" Jason shouted, but the words felt weak, almost swallowed by the sinister hum. The flickering lights cast erratic shadows against the damp walls, and Jason could sense the grotesque figures creeping ever closer. Distorted faces grinned from the darkness, their cruel laughter echoing, mingling with the chanting that now felt like a sinister lullaby. "Join us, don't listen to them, Jason." Tommy cried out, terror painting his voice. "Keep reciting. Please." Heart racing, Jason flipped to a section of the diary that seemed to glow, words spilling from the page. As he read aloud, the very foundation of the basement trembled, as if the building itself was aware of the epic struggle unfolding within its bowels. "Zara, come back." He spoke, willing that ghost into their reality, wishing for her power to manifest. Suddenly, the shadows recoiled violently, shrieking in agony, merging and twisting as they lost their grip. Light burst forth from the diary, illuminating the space around them, but darkness fought back fiercely, engulfing the light with a ferocious hunger. "Jason! Look!" Tommy yelled, pointing to the swirling shadows above them. Among the dark figures, an outline materialized, a spectral presence that flickered between hope and horror. It was Zara. Her translucent form wavered, caught in the battle between his invocation and the sinister forces at play. "Help me!" she cried, reaching out. But even her voice was not free from the chains that bound her to the void. "You have to understand." Jason's heart skipped a beat. "Understand what?" he shouted, the urgency in his voice rising. Would the truth set them free, or trap them deeper? She was pulling the shadows, desperately trying to break free from their grasp. Her eyes bore the weight of ancient knowledge, and in that moment, Jason could feel the inevitability of the choice he faced. To know the truth was a dark path, one lined with untold horrors and unfathomable pain. Make the choice. Zara's voice was a fragile thread, straining against the pull of the abyss. "You have to decide if you want to know what I did. Either way, their thirst for power will not be sated." Jason's heart hammered in his chest, each beat amplifying the tension that threatened to explode into chaos. "Tommy!" he yelled, glancing back, desperate to cling to a glimmer of hope. "We have to trust her." Tommy shouted, but before he could say more, shadows lunged forward, and Zara's form flickered even more chaotically. "It's our only chance," Jason insisted, his voice breaking. "I need to know." "Your curiosity will lead to your downfall," one of the shadow figures hissed, its voice layered with malice, weaving doubt in Jason's mind. With the walls closing in, Jason took a trembling breath. The depths of the basement swirled around him, and reality felt dangerously unstable. "Zara, please. I want to understand." As the words left his lips, the air crackled with energy. The shadows surged, howling in fury, pushing back against the light. "You don't understand what you're asking for," Zara screamed, her form splintering under the pressure, and all at once, Jason realized, this choice would either shatter their reality or transform it forever. The basement began to shake, and Jason was left standing on the precipice of revelation and dread, heart pounding, clutching the diary as if it were the last piece of hope. "In the end, it's never just a choice," the shadows whispered, their voices echoing ominously. "It's a reckoning." As darkness swallowed the light, Jason felt the choice course through him like fire. Would he dare step forward, risking everything to uncover the horrors of Zara, or would he turn back, sealing them both away from a truth too terrible to bear. And with that anguished decision looming over them, only a chilling silence filled the air, leaving Jason's next move teetering on the edge of oblivion. The walls shuddered, a deep groan echoing as if the very bones of the house were protesting against what was happening within its confines. Jason's heart raced. The diary felt heavy in his hands, its words pulsing with the energy of the shadows that fought for dominance. "Make your choice, Jason." Zara's voice trembled, flickering in and out like a dying star. The shadows hissed, their whispers growing louder, more chaotic. "It's twisting you, don't let them." Time stretched, suffocating him in the darkness. Memories flashed in quick succession: Zara's laughter, the way her eyes sparkled with mischief, and the chill that ran down his spine the last time he had seen her. Was it truly a choice? Or just a trap tightly woven by entities that feasted on fear? "Zara!" He shouted into the tempest of shadows, desperation clawing at him. "What did you do? Why are they after you?" Her face contorted, caught in the struggle between fear and urgency. "I opened a door meant to stay closed. It was never my intention, but the power it called to me. And now I don't care about your past." Tommy screamed, breaking into Jason's thoughts, voice raw and shaking. "We need a way out." The mention of escape ignited something primal in Jason. He could feel it now, an unyielding urge to survive, to protect the friend who stood by him. He glanced around, scanning the dark corners of the basement that seemed to stretch into infinity. "We can't leave her," he said, conviction hardening his resolve. Then he caught sight of the shadows, coiling tighter around Zara as her cries grew desperate. "You must choose, Jason. The light can protect us, but only if you believe." "Believe?" He let out a laugh tinged with madness. The shadows shifted dangerously. "In what? That you can save us? They feed on doubt, on fear. Use the diary." It was an ultimatum wrapped in a plea. Tommy's eyes darted between Jason and Zara. "If we trust her, we can turn this around. Just read." With trembling hands, Jason opened the diary again. The words felt alive, almost sentient, as they illuminated a path to possibility amidst the encroaching darkness. "Zara, show me the way." The spectral form of Zara seemed to brighten, wavering as she lifted her hands in a silent incantation. "Speak the truth, Jason. Bind them with your courage." Jason steeled himself, shifting his weight as dread pooled in his stomach. "We are not afraid," he shouted, driven by raw impulse. A spark ignited within him, surging through his limbs like wildfire. As he recited the words, the shadows howled in protest, flickering and writhing as if recoiling from an unseen force. He felt the pull towards the abyss, a hunger attempting to drag him under. "Keep going," Tommy urged, his face pale but steely. "We're almost there." Each verse felt like a decree, banishing the darkness, and for a fleeting moment, the shadows shrank, twisting backwards, their malevolence ebbing. But then, a sinister laughter erupted, the shadows regrouping like an angry tide. "Foolish mortals," one figure sneered, faceless and monstrous. "You cannot save her, or yourselves." The air felt charged, a violent electricity crackling between them. Jason's heart raced. He had dared to intervene, to challenge the forces that sought to claim Zara. "What have you done?" Zara hissed as the shadows pushed back harder. "You must take the leap. Trust in the unknown." Jason didn't understand. Her words felt like echoes of a different time, teetering on the edge of madness. Tommy grabbed his arm. "Make the choice, Jason. We can't go back now." And just like that, when hope threatened to slip away entirely, Jason felt it, a flicker of warmth against the cold void. With a roar that shook the basement, he shouted the next verse with unbridled defiance, willing the shadows to bend, to break. "We will not bow. We are not afraid." The entire basement erupted, a thunderous clash between light and darkness, shaking its very foundations, but as the light surged, Jason felt the ground beneath him shift, the reality starting to splinter. Was this truly the escape? Or a deeper entrapment, the diary? Pulsed violently, and Zara's form began to fracture, her expression morphing into something unrecognizable. "Jason!" she screamed, her voice strangled and fading. "You have to let go." The basement quaked one last time, an imminent fracture echoing through the air, as shadows wailed in dismay. The light flickered. Hope began to unravel in a sudden rush of fear, leaving nothing but a sense of impending doom, and before Jason could grasp the reality of it all, the ground gave way beneath them, plunging them into a chaos that felt like the end and maybe just the beginning. What lay beneath the darkness? What awaited them in the abyss? The descent was palpable. Jason felt himself falling, weightless and lost in a maelstrom of screams and shadows. The air around him thickened, becoming almost suffocating, as if the darkness itself sought to swallow him whole. He reached out, his fingers scraping against the cold, slick surface of reality, desperate for something tangible to hold on to, but there was nothing. Just a vast expanse of nothingness, floating in this abyss, time twisted into a contorted spiral, making it hard to breathe. Jason felt Tommy's presence beside him, a flicker of reality amid the darkness that threatened to consume them. "What the hell is happening?" Tommy shouted, his voice trembling, echoing into the void. "I don't know." Jason gasped, panic bubbling in his chest. "Where is Zara?" Suddenly, the air shifted, something stirred within the darkness. Whispered voices slithered through the void, icy tendrils wrapping around Jason's consciousness. "It's too late for her," they taunted. "She belongs to us now." The realization hit like a bolt of ice. Zara's form, once vibrant, now seemed a faint flicker in his mind. "No! We can't lose her!" Jason screamed, a guttural cry that resonated in the emptiness. In that moment of desperation, the diary appeared, floating before him like a guardian spirit. Its pages flickered and fluttered, words swirling like smoke, whispering possibilities. "You need to believe, Jason." The words pressed into him like a heartbeat, the lifeline he never knew he had. "Believe in what?" he yelled, frustration bleeding into despair. The shadows shrieked, their full fury awakening, swirling in a chaos of rage and hunger. They surged toward him, and Jason's heart raced as he realized how close they were to consuming him. "Use the power. Trust in the light," came another voice, this one softer, more familiar. "Zara," he exclaimed, clenching his teeth against the encroaching darkness. The diary pulsed in response, and an overwhelming warmth flooded his senses, forcing a shivering energy into his fingertips. He remembered her eyes, her laughter, the belief that had sparkled within her. It ignited something fierce within him. "Together," he muttered, gripping the diary tighter, scanning its pages swiftly, searching for the words that might save them all. "Together we can do this. Fight back." Tommy shouted, the raw urgency in his voice enough to wrench Jason from his spiraling despair. "Don't let them take you." He nodded, and with renewed purpose, he began to read aloud. Each word felt like a flare against the dark. The shadows hissed and recoiled, momentarily distracted by the light. "Come on. Keep going, Jason." Tommy urged, his voice strained but resolute. The darkness surged again, more insistently this time, but Jason pushed through. "We will not bow. We will not break. Fear has no power over us." And just like that, the shadows paused, as if considering the threat. The diary transformed, its pages shining bright, spilling light like a beacon into the abyss. The faces forming within the darkness shifted, contorting, writhing in agony, almost human in their torment. In the chaos, Zara's voice emerged amid the cacophony, clearer now. "Find me, Jason. You have to find me." Jason's heart pounded, urgency propelling him forward. "Where are you?" he cried out. "Beneath the surface. You have to choose. The words echoed like a drumbeat, igniting a flicker of hope, but even as the light fought back, the shadows were relentless, a swarm of anguish raising their claws, desperate to lash out. Jason felt something slipping, a thread lessening his grip on reality. The ground shuddered again, threatening to swallow them deeper into the darkness. "Jason, no!" Tommy screamed, reaching for him, but Jason stumbled as the world began to fracture beneath him once more. The light vanished momentarily, the shadows closing in like a tidal wave. In that instant, Jason realized the truth behind Zara's warning. The real choice lay ahead of him, deeper than the abyss. They had fought hard, but the hardest decision still awaited, one that could save them all, or doom them. Entirely, amidst the chaos, a new darkness loomed, whispering promises of despair. Would he dare take the leap into the unknown? And if he did, what consequences would it bring? With uncertainty tightening around him like a noose, Jason felt the chilling question pulse in his mind. What dark truth awaited him below, and would he be strong enough to face it? As Jason hovered in the churning chaos of the abyss, the weight of his choices pressed against him like an anvil, threatening to crush him beneath a reality filled with shadows. He gripped Tommy's hand tightly, their connection trembling but unyielding, even in this world of darkness. "We will fight," he whispered fiercely, recalling Zara's voice, her pleas echoing within his heart. "Find her, Jason," Tommy urged, eyes wide with fear. "We need her. She's the key." With a breath filled with resolve, Jason focused his thoughts. He thought of Zara, of the good she had once brought into their lives. The flicker of hope ignited once more. "I want to let you go," he yelled, bracing himself against the shadows that clawed at him from all sides, hungry and insistent. He could feel their breath, cold and damp, wrapping around his skin like chains. But with renewed determination, he pulled Tommy closer, planting his feet firmly against the chaos surrounding them. Together. In that moment, the diary pulsed almost alive in his hands, a talisman ready to turn the tide. Jason peered at the pages, seeking the words that might free them. "Zara!" he called out again, voice echoing in defiance. "Where are you?" Suddenly, the swirling mass of shadows seemed to quiet, their agitation stirring a roiling tension in the air around them. He could almost see them falter, retreating just slightly, as if unsure of their hold. "When does it end?" he shouted once more, memories flooding back, better days spent battling phantoms and seeking truth. "Do you choose light or darkness?" A shadowy figure hissed, shifting in front of them with gnarled fingers stretched wide, clawing at the air. The figure's voice was familiar, twisted with a malevolence that sent chills racing down Jason's spine. "Neither." Jason shot back, gripping the diary tighter, desperation fueling every infused word. "I choose hope. I choose." The shadows converged, a whirlwind of swirling dread, the malignancy thickened in the air. "The choice is yours, mortal. But remember, every path taken has a price." Jason squeezed Tommy's hand, the bond strengthening their resolve. The recollection of Zara's flickering form, her pleading eyes, ignited a fire inside him. "I choose love, and I choose to fight." In defiance of the shadows that sought to enforce despair, Jason began reciting words from the diary that glimmered with vibrant light, pushing back darkness with every syllable. "Zara, reveal yourself. Together we rise." A lightning bolt of energy shot through him, illuminating the shrouded void. The shadows shrieked in agony as light invaded their grotesque forms, and Jason felt a rush of primal adrenaline surging through his veins. "Feel the light, embrace it," Tommy shouted, his voice teasing the shadows, his innocent yet fierce spirit shining like a beacon. Suddenly, a surge of warmth enveloped Jason and Tommy, enveloping them in a cocoon of safety. Zara's form began to materialize, luminous and ethereal, bridging the gap between light and dark. "Jason!" she called, her voice spilling warmth into the swirling void. "I'm here. I won't abandon you." "Zara!" Jason felt tears prick his eyes, coursing with relief and anger. Help us. We can't lose each other like this. With renewed vigor, Zara extended her hands toward Jason, her powerful voice ringing through the air. Believe in the light, only then can we break free. As he recited the invocation that linked them, the shadows writhed violently, screaming in protest, unraveling under the strength of collective belief: his love, Tommy's innocence, and Zara's fire. The words spilled forth, wrapping around the shadows until they began to fracture, twining tighter and tighter until the very fabric of their being began to unravel before them. Let go of the fear. You have the power within you, she declared, a melody of strength ringing clear above the chaos, resounding in the very bones of their imprisonment. With a final surge of unity, the darkness faltered one last time, screeching, and then in a flash of blinding light, shattered into oblivion. Silence enveloped them, followed by a warm embrace of light, washing away all remnants of despair, a healing balm in the wake of their dark passage. And then, they stood together, Jason, Tommy, and Zara, safe in a hallowed space, the remnants of shadows slinking away into irrelevance. Jason's heart soared. The bonds forged through love and bravery had triumphed against the darkness, against the fear that once strangled them. Is it really over? Tommy asked, gazing around wide-eyed as the light shimmered softly around them. Zara smiled, her face filled with a new light. It is, but remember, true darkness is never gone entirely. It only hides, waiting for a moment of weakness. Jason nodded, absorbing her words, realizing that they had woven something more than just survival, a fierce, enduring bond that would remain even against the abyss. As they emerged into the world once sizzling with light, Jason's heart felt whole at last. Let us go home, he said softly, thinking of laughter, of love. With hands entwined, they ventured forth into the warmth, ready to face whatever lay ahead, knowing they were forever changed yet armed with the strength of their shared light. Give your friends a chance to experience this heart-pounding finale. You need to subscribe immediately to ensure you don't miss out on our next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to help with the algorithm. Your engagement matters. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this conclusion, because we want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this epic resolution. Show your support like a true fan.